More than 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire ruled much of the known world. Its armies conquered nations, its emperors commanded absolute power, and its cities were filled with wealth, ambition, and dangerous politics. But behind the glory of ancient Rome were secrets, dark secrets, that could destroy lives and shake the foundations of the empire. Tonight, we tell the story of a Roman soldier who overheard a deadly conspiracy inside the emperor's palace, a secret powerful enough to change the fate of Rome forever. This is the story of loyalty, betrayal, and the dangerous price of knowing too much. Rome was the most powerful city in the ancient world. Its streets were always alive with noise. Merchants shouted in crowded markets, soldiers marched through the city gates, and senators walked proudly through the Roman Forum discussing politics and power. At the center of all this power stood Emperor Nero. Nero was a ruler who fascinated the people of Rome. Some admired him for his love of music, art, and grand performances. Others feared him because of his unpredictable temper and ruthless decisions. No one truly knew what Nero was capable of. Inside the imperial palace worked hundreds of soldiers whose duty was to protect the emperor day and night. Among them was a young Roman officer named Marcus Valerius. Marcus had earned his place through courage and loyalty. He had fought in distant battles and proved himself to be a disciplined and trustworthy soldier. But Marcus never expected that the greatest danger he would face would come not from war, but from a secret hidden within the palace walls. One quiet evening, Marcus stood guard in a dim corridor of the imperial palace. The torches along the walls flickered softly, casting shadows across the marble floor. Most of the palace had grown silent as night fell over Rome. Then suddenly Marcus heard something unusual. Voices, quiet voices speaking behind one of the nearby doors. Marcus slowly walked closer. Careful not to make any sound, the voices were coming from a Senate meeting chamber inside the palace. Several powerful Roman senators were gathered inside. These were not ordinary men. They were leaders of Rome, men who controlled wealth, influence, and political power. Marcus knew guards were not supposed to listen to private meetings. But something about the tension in their voices made him stop. He moved closer to the door, and then he heard the words that made his heart begin stop. One senator spoke quietly, "Rome cannot survive under Nero." Another voice responded, "Then we must remove him before it is too late." The room fell silent for a moment. Then another senator spoke the words Marcus would never forget. "The emperor must die." Marcus felt cold fear rush through his body. They were planning to assassinate the emperor. A conspiracy was forming inside the palace itself. Marcus slowly stepped back into the shadows. His mind raced. If the senators discovered he had heard their conversation, they would kill him immediately. But if he stayed silent, the emperor might soon be dead. Marcus realized he now carried a secret powerful enough to shake the entire Roman Empire. And the most dangerous part was that he had no idea who he could trust. That night, Marcus barely slept, because the next decision he made could cost him his life. The following morning, the palace was unusually busy. Servants rushed through the hallways, soldiers changed their posts, and messengers moved quickly between offices. Marcus tried to act normal, but his thoughts kept returning to the conversation he had overheard the night before. Every senator he passed now seemed suspicious. Every whisper sounded like part of the conspiracy. Marcus knew he had to decide what to do. If he told the emperor about the plot, powerful senators would be exposed. But if the conspirators found out Marcus had betrayed them, his life would end immediately. While Marcus struggled with his thoughts, a palace guard suddenly approached him. "The emperor wants to see you," the guard said. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Being summoned by the emperor was never a simple matter. It could mean reward or punishment. Marcus walked through the grand halls of the palace toward the throne room. Golden decorations lined the walls. Roman soldiers stood silently beside enormous pillars. At the end of the hall sat Emperor Nero. The emperor looked calm, almost relaxed, but his eyes were sharp and watchful. Marcus knelt before him. "Rise," Nero said. Marcus stood slowly. The emperor studied him for several seconds without speaking. Then Nero leaned forward slightly. "Marcus Valerius," he said quietly, "you have served Rome well." Marcus bowed his head. "Respectfully, I serve Rome and the Emperor," he replied. Nero nodded. "But Rome is full of traitors," the Emperor continued, "men who pretend to be loyal while secretly planning my destruction." The room suddenly felt colder. Marcus realized Nero suspected something, but did he already know about the conspiracy? Or was he simply testing the loyalty of those around him? The Emperor's voice grew softer. "Tell me, Marcus," Nero said. "Are the men of the Senate truly loyal to their Emperor?" Marcus felt his heart pounding. This was the moment that would decide everything. If he spoke, powerful men would fall. If he stayed silent, the Emperor might die. Marcus took a deep breath, and then he made the decision that would change the fate of Rome. When Marcus revealed the conspiracy, the palace erupted into chaos. Emperor Nero listened carefully as Marcus described everything he had heard. The Emperor's face remained calm, but his eyes burned with anger. For Nero, betrayal was the greatest crime imaginable. Within hours, the Emperor ordered his guards to act. Soldiers rushed through the streets of Rome. Homes belonging to powerful senators were surrounded. Doors were broken open. Men who once commanded respect and authority were dragged into the streets in chains. The city quickly filled with rumors. People whispered in markets, temples, and taverns. Some believed the empire was on the verge of civil war. Others feared the emperor would punish anyone even suspected of disloyalty. The arrested senators were brought before Nero in the palace court. Crowds gathered outside to hear what would happen. Inside the court, the accused men stood silently before the emperor. Some denied everything. Others remained quiet, knowing their fate was already decided. One senator shouted angrily at Nero, "You are destroying Rome with fear." The emperor stared at him calmly. "No." Nero replied slowly, "I am protecting Rome from traitors." One by one, the conspirators were judged. Some were sentenced to prison. Others were forced into exile far from Rome, and a few faced a much darker punishment. The message was clear. No one could challenge the emperor without consequences. Rome watched in fear as the conspiracy collapsed. The emperor had survived, but while the empire celebrated the defeat of the conspirators, Marcus began to realize something troubling. He had exposed powerful men. He had revealed a deadly secret. And now he was the only man in Rome who knew exactly how close the emperor had come to death in the Roman Empire. Knowledge could be more dangerous than betrayal. Marcus had saved Nero, but he had also made himself very dangerous. Several days after the arrests, Marcus was summoned to the palace once again. He walked through the familiar corridors with a strange feeling in his chest. The palace seemed quieter than before. Servants avoided his eyes. Some soldiers whispered as he passed. Marcus entered the throne room. Emperor Nero sat on his throne as usual, surrounded by guards. This time the emperor looked almost pleased. "Marcus Valerius," Nero said with a small smile, "you have done a great service for Rome." Marcus bowed respectfully. "I only did my duty, my emperor." Nero stood and slowly walked down the steps of his throne. "You revealed the conspiracy that threatened my life," Nero said. "You saved the empire." Marcus waited for the emperor to continue. Perhaps he would receive a reward. Perhaps a promotion. Instead, Nero said something Marcus never expected. "You must leave Rome." Marcus looked up in surprise. "My emperor?" Nero nodded calmly. A man who knows the secrets of emperors holds dangerous power. Marcus finally understood by saving the emperor. He had also become someone the emperor could not fully trust. Nero placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You will be sent to serve in a distant military post," the emperor said. "You will live as a hero far from Rome." Marcus lowered his head. He had saved the emperor. He had protected the empire. Yet his reward was exile. Marcus left the palace that day knowing history would never remember his name, but his choice had changed the fate of Rome. Because sometimes the people who shape history are not emperors or kings. Sometimes they are ordinary soldiers who hear the wrong conversation at the wrong time and must decide whether to remain silent or change the course of an empire forever.